5G technology is the future, and if you're a long-term investor, you may have already dabbled in some 5G stocks. And I thought we'd do this video slightly different from some of the other YouTube channels out there that covered 5G stocks. I want to look at this from 3 different segments. The first being the actual base station technology that's going to host the 5G networks. The second is chips and system on a chips that'll communicate with these 5G networks. And the third is where you have actual consumer devices that will leverage 5G technology. So if you have any guesses as to what these 3 stock picks will be today, comment them down below before we go through the picks in the video, and let's see how close you are to actually guessing what my 3 stock picks are here today. And of course, if you're brand new here guys, hit that subscribe button down below, hit that bell notification as well so you know exactly when I release more videos just like this. So what I thought we'd do is actually quickly summarize in a nutshell here what 5G is and why you may want to invest in stocks and companies that are investing in 5G. So here's a comparison, quickly comparing 4G versus 5G, and you can see the kind of big highlights here is that the speeds 5G offers is a huge improvement over 4G. 4G would be able to provide a max of 1 gigabit per second, but 5G will be able to bump that up to 200 gigabits per second. Response time is also improved drastically, 60 milliseconds max in 4G, but 10 milliseconds max in 5G, essentially making it almost real time. This means that requests sent by devices and devices talking to each other is much quicker and much more responsive. And last thing here is that 5G has a broader range for bandwidth compared to 4G, which is up to 1,000 times more range. And IoT is also a term that you might have heard being thrown around there. It's kind of being bundled in here with 5G. And essentially all it means is that you have one device and another device, and they're able to talk to each other. So this makes the devices kind of understand what the other one is doing, use information accordingly. And this is useful in applications like cars, for example, where cars can talk to each other, kind of figure out traffic conditions, accidents, all that kind of stuff as well. So really 5G is the natural progression of 4G, and it's something that's going to improve our world immensely, make things a lot more efficient, a lot quicker, and a lot more advanced. Now let's start off with our stock picks. The first is a company that actually develops this 5G technology, and they're actually going to be the ones that are kind of the forefront of 5G, because without the base, you can't really use 5G. And this company that I want to talk about is called Nokia. Nokia, the company once known for the phones that it sold consumers, is now a major player in the development and deployment of 5G infrastructure. They're a Finnish company and over the decades has established themselves to one of the go-to companies for wireless technology. And naturally with 5G, Nokia is kind of ahead of the game here, and it is competing head-to-head with its other competitors like Ericsson and Huawei. And I did find some marketing material here which I'll share with you guys, which Nokia provides on their website, which kind of shows off the technology a bit and shows the reach that they have worldwide. So Nokia has a solution called 5G Future X, which is designed to be the starting point for every extraordinary 5G experience. And digging deeper on their website, they share the customers that they have for 5G already, and in North America there's quite a few big names. These names include AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint, and in Canada they actually have signed up Bell as well. So Nokia has some great coverage here, and this will continue in my opinion throughout 2019, 2020 across the globe. And the potential here for countries and governments to choose Nokia for 5G is incredibly large. Last year T-Mobile signed a $3.5 billion deal with Nokia, and just recently in fact we got news that the Pentagon is looking at Nokia for 5G deployment. We also had some news come out that Nokia will be A1 Telecom's provider of choice in Austria, and I'm sure as we continue through 2019 and 2020, as 5G deployment and development becomes more and more mainstream, we're going to see a lot more companies choosing Nokia or Ericsson versus Huawei in my opinion, at least when it comes to developed nations. And the reason I picked this stock is that because for the last 5 years, it's literally just been moving sideways and been consolidating. And this is of course after the last big sell-off that it had during the last recession. And this really makes sense when you look at their growth numbers. The revenue really hasn't grown over the last few years, which is in line with how the stock has performed. In fact, you can see it's a very steady decline and it remains in 22 to 22 billion range annually. And what kept my attention, even though the stock hasn't done much in the last few years, is their balance sheet. I noticed that their cash and cash equivalents are strong, giving me confidence that they can invest in new technologies. And the debt is fairly low, so they can actually make some acquisitions in the 5G space if they wanted to. One of their closest competitors, Ericsson, also has a very similar balance sheet, but the real difference comes in the valuation of the company. Both have around a mid $30 billion market cap, but Ericsson is trading at an 18.4 PE, where Nokia is trading at a 13.4 PE. Nokia also pays out a dividend of over 4%, where Ericsson pays out a dividend of around 1%. So from a fundamental standpoint, when looking at these two players, Nokia does seem like the stronger play here. And analysts really tend to agree here, with the average price target at 25% from where the stock is today. But I personally think there's a lot more upside than that in this stock. If Nokia can secure more of these multi-billion-dollar contracts, there's no reason why their market cap can't be close to a $100 billion company. So now let's look at the charts for Nokia here, and you can see it tends to hover around the moving averages, implying that investors are not really sure if they're bullish or bearish on the company. And this is exactly why it appeals to me, because everything I've seen points towards a bullish future for Nokia. We may not move much in the next few months, but as 2020 gets closer, I think the market will start paying more attention to Nokia, and I think that is where we're going to see some strong growth in the company. Okay, now moving on to our second stock pick is a company that's going to be taking advantage of the 5G technology, and they're actually going to be producing the chips that will be communicating with these 5G technology base stations. And this company is Qualcomm, and in my opinion, they're at the forefront of this technology when it comes to chips and 5G. They've been working on 5G for over 10 years, and we are pretty much at the stage now where they can mass produce these chips for devices. They also believe that 5G is going to be a $12 trillion industry, and they want a major chunk of that pie if possible. And in my opinion, it's very possible. And really, Qualcomm is trying to tackle 5G from different directions. You can see here some of the areas that they're spending money on R&D in, and it's pretty clear that they want to have their hands in almost every single part of 5G. The biggest opportunity, in my opinion, for 5G for Qualcomm is going to be the adoption of their chips in smartphones. All phones now have a 4G LTE chip built into them, which is the technology available right now. But as 5G rolls out, a lot of these carriers are going to support 5G, and as a result, phones will also need to be upgraded with 5G chips so they can take advantage of this. And as of right now, Qualcomm has developed two models for 5G modems here, and you can see the comparison between the two. It's the X50 and the X55. Both offer great 5G connectivity, and both are next generation chips from Qualcomm. They'll provide improvements in things like faster speeds, support for advanced mobility features, and these chips will have a wide range of applications as well. Now, if you weren't aware, most phones, especially Android phones, have a chip called a Snapdragon chip. I'm sure you've heard the name Snapdragon before. You may have not known it was associated with Qualcomm, but it's actually the best-selling chip out there, and almost every major Android flagship runs on a Qualcomm Snapdragon chip. It's by far the most dominant chip when it comes to smartphones, and I believe that with 5G, it's going to continue to do so as well. And now, like I said, the stock has been moving pretty much sideways for the last few years, and this makes sense because smartphone sales have started to kind of dwindle off over the last few years or so. But I believe with 5G, it's going to kind of reignite this wave, and a lot of consumers are going to go out there and purchase new phones that have 5G chips in them to take advantage of the technology. So currently, Qualcomm is actually very expensive, trading at a PE of around 38, but they have a forward PE of around 13, which makes this a very appealing stock. Considering that Qualcomm is a futuristic company, they're investing in the future like 5G, it seems like investors have not really priced in this movement in the stock in the next 12 months or so, and it is surprising to me that this company is trading at such a low forward PE when it has tons of growth ahead of it. And analysts are not too optimistic on the stock currently either, with only an 11% upside. But again, I think this will change as 5G starts becoming more mainstream and analysts start upgrading the stock. Now, like we stated, the charts are pretty much moving sideways here on Qualcomm, and you can see here on the monthly, we're just in that $50 to $80 range for the last almost decade. There seems to be some value in the stock under $50 per share, and combining that with its over 4% dividend yield, this may be a tempting play for 5G exposure for the longer term. There's competition in the space, no doubt, but I believe that Qualcomm will continue to be the leader in this space with their Snapdragon 5G chips. And moving on to our third pick here is a company that actually is in that smartphone space. Although they may not use Qualcomm's chips because of legal battles between the two, they are still going to be taking advantage of 5G in their devices. And of course, if you haven't figured it out by now, this company I'm referring to is Apple. So Apple really has been stagnating the last couple of years in terms of the unit sale numbers for their iPhones. But what they've done, which is pretty smart in my opinion, is they just raise the prices on their iPhones to account for the loss of unit sales. This way they continue to post strong numbers, they continue to post beats quarter over quarter, year over year, and as a result, the company does look to be doing pretty well right now. Now, this may be a short-term solution that's working well right now for Apple, but over the longer term, consumers are not going to want to pay $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 for a smartphone. However, if in the near future, say in a year or two, we get an iPhone X 5G or something like that, a lot of consumers will definitely look to upgrade their current phones to that phone. The reason is because a lot of consumers currently are sitting, say, with an iPhone 6, 6S, or even older generation iPhones, and they don't really see a need to upgrade to these new iPhones, mainly because the increments are not that drastic and they still get the same technology out of the phone they currently have for the most part. But with 5G, it's going to be a completely new game, it's going to be completely new technology, faster speeds, everything will be much quicker and more responsive, and as a result, I think Apple is going to actually enter a new super cycle and start selling a lot more phones once again. Now, Apple was well below $150 per share recently, which is where I personally found a lot of value in the stock, and a lot of other investors seem to have also found value in that because the stock is now up close to almost $200 per share just a few months later. In fact, we moved so quick here that analysts actually had a price target, and currently the stock is sitting at slightly above that price target. So this really implies that the next earnings report from Apple will tell us the direction we will keep moving in 2019. If we see good numbers and good earnings come out from Apple, analysts will most likely raise their price targets to somewhere around $220 per share or higher. And if not, we may actually see a lot of downgrades come into the stock. And as we can see here, Apple's weekly chart, we are breaking above a key resistance level, and we have a few gaps to fill on the upside, which I think is more likely to fill than the gaps on the downside. I think that Apple is in an incredible position here to take advantage of 5G. I think that with the 5G rollout, we can see Apple back above a $1 trillion market cap company. And I don't think that the fears around Apple dying as a brand, the iPhones not being as popular, is going to be sustainable once 5G is rolled out and Apple has a 5G iPhone. So guys, this is how I'm personally viewing the 5G revolution. Of course, you have other companies like your carriers like AT&T, Verizon, and all those companies that will benefit from 5G as well. But I like to focus on companies that actually will take advantage of the core manufacturing. So those will be companies like Nokia and Qualcomm. And then of course I love consumer-based companies because it's a product that I can relate to as well, which is why I included Apple in this list as well. So like I said, let me know what 5G stocks you're currently holding or thinking of buying. I'm sure there's a lot of companies out there that I may have not heard of before. So share that in the comment section down below and let's have a great discussion on that. Drop a huge like if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more stock pick related videos, make sure you check out that video up here. But either way guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to invest positively, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.